Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special episode of the Waste World podcast. My name is Gage Edwards, and I am one half of the usual hosts for our show, serving up a small intro here today. Today, we are bringing you one of our panels from WasteExpo 2024. I was the moderator for this panel, and our other usual host, Stephanie Valentic, was a panelist on it, where we discussed content creation, podcasts, and creating TikToks for the waste industry with some other industry professionals. So today's podcast will be listening to that panel and hopefully learning something. So let's check that out right now. And remember, it's all world. Let's not waste it. Enjoy. All right, everyone, we're going to get started. Good morning. Glad to see you all here today. You picked the right panel to come to first.
That's right.
Bright and early in the morning. It is the morning show of WasteExpo, as you'll see here. So a lot of good conversation, but let's get into it. My name is Gage Edwards. I am the content producer over at waste360.com, and I'll be moderating your session. I'm going to run through a quick script here on our session. I'd first like to thank you for your support of WasteExpo and the NWRA. Your participation and feedback is sincerely appreciated. Before we begin this session, I'd like to share a few reminders with you. We welcome your participation in the session. If there's time at the end for Q&A, which we'll leave about 15 minutes for, I will let you know when that's happening. Just make sure you're speaking directly into the microphone in the middle of the room. That way we can hear it and the audio recording also gets it. We know business doesn't stop, but please remember to put your cell phones on vibrate during the session. Don't forget to download the WasteExpo mobile app. For evaluations, you can connect to Slido, but on your way out, there will also be a QR code you may be able to scan. I also have one up front if you can't find it. That way you can go through the session and let us know what you thought of it, and let everyone know that I did a good job and should be doing this more. New this year for WasteExpo is reusable cups called R Cup to replace single-use cups for all of our conference coffee service. If you grabbed a cup of coffee or tea, please make sure you were using the R cups and returning those to the appropriate bin. They're yellow. They're hard to miss. We are following CDC guidelines as always, and mask wearing is optional. Please use your discretion per your comfort level and respect others' choices. And always mark your calendar for next year's WasteExpo 2025, May 5th through May 8th in Las Vegas. Please visit wasteexpo.com for more details. Again, thank you, Waste360 and the Waste360 and the NWRA. Thank you for your attendance and support. Now let's get the session started. First, I want to do some introductions. I already talked about myself. I get top billing on this slide because I'm the most important. Clearly, that's what that means. But my panel today consists of Sarah Fuentes, co-founder and president of Smart Waste Incorporated, Jennifer Betts, CEO, Recycled Media, Brett Eckhart, CEO, United Metals Recycling, and Stephanie Valentic, editorial director of Waste360.com. She is my boss, so if you see her roaming around, let her know that I did a great job.
You're doing a great job.
Before we get into our first slide, I'm going to ask the panel some questions here to kind of get us going, get the juices going. We're all content creators, so I imagine there will be good conversation here. So Sarah, I'd like to start with you. Pretty open-ended question, but what is your definition of success?
Hey everyone, thank you for being here today. So when I started the podcast, Trash Magic, that was not the original name. The original name was What the Hell Do I Do With This? And the reason why we called it that, Oakley and I, was because how many people in the room have stood in front of garbage cans at a waste sorting station and you have something in your hand and you think to yourself, what the hell do I do with this? Well, we then realized that maybe that was not the best name for a podcast. So Oakley and I had a conversation one day and she was into this book club. And long story short, she had said this word and it was trash magic. And we transitioned. And so when I think about success, it's not really like when you start something, you sometimes as creators or as, business owners, I go from a business owner mind to a creative mind. And it's a little bit more liberating. And so my idea of success is when my intention is actually actualized. So when a listener has had some sort of behavior change and there is an impact because of something that they heard, and then there is some sort of now impact in the world now that they're living in. And I look at that as my idea of success as a creator. On a business mind, that might not be the same definition as maybe someone else in the room. But that's how I'll answer my idea of success for Trash Magic.
Excellent. Brett, I know it's scary to put yourself out there on social media and to start something like a podcast. I want to know from you, what do you think is the biggest thing holding people back from posting on social media or starting a podcast?
You know, I think that it's people just are nervous what somebody else is going to think of them. I mean, I think I had the hardest time initially for me starting a podcast. I had a guy named John Sacco who started a Pile of Scrap come and approach me in 2018, 19. He goes, "Man, you have a great story. You should be on my podcast." So I was like, no, I'm good. I don't do podcasts. I don't do social media. You know, I post some stuff on LinkedIn. I'm fine. And he goes, "No, I think you should tell your story." And the immediate impact that it had on me and in our business, I knew I wanted to grow our business. I knew I needed to do something. So I was kind of at that point where I'll do anything to grow. And if it means putting myself in front of a camera and discussing what we were doing and how we were going about our business, if that's what it was going to take, then I was willing to try it. So I think you're just the fear of what somebody else might think of you, or if you're doing everything right within your business, or you're saying it exactly the correct way and you don't have spelling errors in your posts or whatever the hell it is. Like there's a certain genuineness of just putting it out there and saying, you know, take the good with the bad and overcoming that part. And it's been great for our business.
Excellent. Now we talked podcasts, but I want to shift to TikTok for a second, Jennifer. What advantages does a platform like TikTok have?
For me, TikTok was a really great space because I'm on LinkedIn first. It's B2B. We're business owners first. And TikTok was a creative space where it was a blank audience. You can be creative there because the audience is completely different than your LinkedIn audience. So you have the freedom to try things out without it being your LinkedIn audience. So you can try green screens, you can try podcast videos, you can try those ideas that you probably don't want to put on LinkedIn first. And you can kind of hone in your shtick, if you will, on TikTok, and you can build up a community that is different on TikTok versus LinkedIn, but you can repurpose some of those videos to other channels. And that's a really great strength of TikTok that a lot of business owners sometimes overlook of that platform.
And TikTok too is like, I mean, it is the new Google.
TikTok people are using TikTok more for search now than they are Google, right? I mean, so they're going there for information. So it is like there's like a lot of crossover that you can cross utilize those videos, but you can also, I mean, people are going there to try and figure stuff out. And if your information pops up, your name pops up, then all of a sudden you are basically getting a ton of free marketing just by providing quality information. I mean, it doesn't have to be a dance, or I mean, some of the best videos are probably some of the more silly, fun, like bullshit videos, but there's a lot of people there that are going there for good quality information. They're trying to figure something out, a la like Trash Magic, what do I do with this, right? Like there are people that are genuinely trying to search information out. So that platform has definitely changed from like when it very first started.
Multi-generational. Like I think about like TikTok, like my mom has TikTok on her phone and so does my son. Like that's multi-generational if I've ever heard anything like this. Like, so when I think about information and things like getting a creative idea out there that's also going to influence our community, we have to stay kind of current to what's going on, right? And it's kind of fascinating to see how fast information goes on TikTok and how it does influence people's pockets.
Right. Now, Stephanie, as someone who writes about the industry every day, how important is it for these companies in the waste industry to have a content output, be on TikTok or have a podcast? Why do they need content?
I feel like one of the biggest things that is said to me as the editor of Waste 360 is that we need more education. And I feel that that is the reason why, even if your content, if you don't feel like the first content you produce is the best content, keep producing it and get better at it, because people out there need the information. And if you demonstrate the action that they need to take to make the impact that needs to be made, with, you know, when you're communicating that information to them about recycling, like, what the hell do I have to do with that? If you actually show physically on video or speak about it, you know, you tell them step by step what to do. If you give them, you know, actionable items to have, I think that's the best content. And I think if you communicate in a way that resonates with that particular demographic, that age group, whoever you're trying to reach, I think that is really going to impact the industry as a whole and where we go with recycling, and also, you know, kind of combat the, you know, media that is out there that says recycling doesn't work, nothing is happening, because something is happening. You know, we're at the show today with 15,000, you know, close to 15,000 people, and we're seeing this new machinery, this new equipment, and that's not being brought to the regular, you know, news channels, to the regular media, to the local news outlets. So it's up to us to be able to show exactly what happens when, you know, this jar or this, you know, mug or this piece of plastic goes into the bin, physically where it goes. So I think that's why it is so important for, you know, rounding it out, you know, even if the content's not the best to begin with, being able to curate content and kind of tweak it a little bit, I think, you know, just for the sake of the industry, I think that's why we all need to have at least some type of communication.
I think if you're like looking for a start, like to piggyback what you're saying, you're like, you don't know where to start, then if you can start, every one of us, whether it's our business, we work at a large corporation, like we're responsible for something within that business, within that industry that we have knowledge on. So obviously, as long as your company's okay with you sharing your knowledge, I think the education piece is what actually drives like views, is what drives people to your brand, to your company. But your ability or your willingness to educate people on why you set your piece of equipment here versus here and the angle of it. I mean, it might seem like a minute thing to us. It's just something we do throughout the course of our business. But there's other people that are thinking about buying that piece of equipment, or they're thinking about doing a similar thing, and they're like, oh, this is why it makes sense, right? And as long as they're not directly competing with you, I mean, we all know that whether it's scrap or trash or tires or whatever, it only goes so far. It's not going to travel from Idaho to California for the most part. I mean, it's within a certain geography. So your willingness to educate and provide that information is a great way to drive people to your business and to your brand.
Excellent. Let's move on into our first official slide, social media marketing, long form versus short form. Before we get into this, how many people today are making podcasts or content, TikTok? Show of hands. Anybody? Few of you? Who wants to start? Much more. Perfect. Hopefully you're in the right place. Get some good information here for these. So short form, we're talking TikTok, Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts. You've probably seen plenty of them. They flood your feed. They find a way into your interest quickly. Long form, podcast, YouTube video, a promo video, probably more than a minute, we're thinking. And then the OGs, of course, we're using LinkedIn, business to business, great place for it. Instagram, Facebook. Also, these time waster apps, but great source of information on finding out what's happening, you know, nearby and in the world. I'd like to start with short form first with you guys. Who on the table who's making short form content can speak to the benefits of TikToks, of Reels, of short form, quick, punchy 1-minute videos?
Go ahead, Jennifer.
The pro.
Yeah, it's your.
In today's world, we have really short attention spans. You have maybe 2 seconds, 5 seconds, at best 10 seconds before your key audience is swiping. So you have to grab their attention immediately. If you are trying to plan this beautiful 2-minute, 5-minute video about your business, it's not going to necessarily translate to where your key demographic is always going to be. And that's where these short forms are going to come into play, where you can educate in a really fun, interesting way. You can educate in a really fun, interesting way with these short form videos. And you can connect in a very authentic way in these videos. And you can do it with employees. You can do it with showcasing your processes. Because think about it, we see what we do every single day, and that's normal to us. It's not normal to the outside world, what we do on a day-to-day basis. And it's really quite interesting to the outside world. And yet a lot of us don't showcase it. And to Stephanie's point, the outside media traditional world, they tend to run with those stories that may not always benefit us because we, as a whole, the 15,000 of us here, don't always put out the positive news stories. And we can do that in these 10, 15, 20, sometimes up to 60-second videos that then can go out a little bit more viral.
So I want to speak to those that rose their hand that want to start. Okay. I went through a process with Oakley, who's my co-host, the hostess with the compostess. She's currently in Denver. So if you're ever there, give her a shout out. I went through this experience with like, hey, I'm a podcaster. I don't really want my face out there. Like, I don't want people to see my face. I want them to hear me before they see me because people tend to be biased. And if we dismiss this conversation, then I'm not being my authentic self. So I went through this process with Oakley and it was very emotional for me. But at the same time, there were some things that I worked through. So I said, hey, you know what? I'm just going to come however I come because we made a dedicated time and day. So in terms of structuring it, when you want to start, I said, hey, I'm going to commit to every Friday, and it's Friday, and I'm going to be at this time, and this is it for every week, me and her. This is our plan. And whether we were actually recording, going live, whether we were creating content or just meeting, and having somebody there that's just going to hold you accountable was so important. So whether it's yourself or your best friend or your wife or your husband or whoever that person is for you, I would say grab that person. And if you want accountability, maybe one of us will hold you accountable. Like us, share us, talk about us. So I would say that like you're going to go through some of those things that you're like similar to, you know, what he was talking about earlier, like, oh, how people are going to view you. But you're going to also understand that there's going to be people that are going to be really influenced by you and also very inspired by you. And also like you're going to be able to kind of introduce them into a very nuanced world and bring them into a place that can advance our industry in a creative way. And that's what I love about our podcast platform is that you're sharing information and like giving stepstones and bullet steps to get to that place that they want to go in their business. And it's really interesting to see that happen in this type of community because it's now, it's current, it's real, it's like real time. I don't know about you, but I'm nosy. And so having access to creative content that's current and being able to share it, also timely, keeps you current. And so I really appreciate that about, you know, reels and short things because it's like right now, this is where we're at. This is what we're doing, keeping it live. And nothing keeps you more present than that. And I do think people want us to have access. And I think it's important to give them that.
And real quick, just for like an idea, real time, like let's translate into something that you can walk out of here and use your phone with. Something that works really well for me is I green screen news articles. So when I say green screen, it means I take a screenshot of a news article that's some sort of current event that happens that relates to my industry specifically or my business. And then I put my 2 cents on it. And that's a short form video that works really well for me and my business and in my particular industry. That may be something that you can do in your particular industry, your particular business in that space. And that can be a short form video because most people don't want you to read the whole video for 10 minutes.
Cool. Let's switch over to podcasts and kind of cover the same thing. When starting with content and you want to start a podcast, why is that important? Why do we want to start a podcast? Is it more effective than TikTok, or should they both run together?
I think they should both run together. I think the beautiful thing about long form content creation like podcasts is it allows you to then clip it out and gives you a bunch of short form content. So if you're doing long form creation, like if you're doing podcasts, you don't even have to be an expert on the subject. You can just bring in experts, ask them a ton of questions, allow them to, present their knowledge, share their knowledge. You can clip a lot of that out into as many clips as you want. Use that as, your education piece for your social media. So now you're providing education. You're also taking your customers or your vendors or whoever, and you're putting them on. You're giving them some love. You're showing them. Maybe they don't have the energy or motivation or want to start their own podcast, but they don't mind being on yours, right? You're doing the creative, you're doing the work. Now you can showcase them, and it goes against your brand. And so I think there's the purpose of it is, Jennifer and I have a company we started just to help people start podcasts because I believe it's that important. And the only reason I know is because I know what it did for my business. And I went through the trials and tribulations. I know how much, our business is almost tripled, like literally, and I know a lot of that's just because of marketing. And it's because of our willingness to do the podcast, bring in experts, talk to people, educate, have fun, and then use that content, go through, clip it out, and run it against what's going on in today's world.
Gage, you asked about podcasts and long form versus short form. And I'll say this, as a former educator, I really think about who's listening and how they learn. So I think about as something that Stephanie brought up about education and how it's important that certain things are communicated in a certain way. And then we bring up what you also said about our attention span. So we think about all these things and we want to be able to have all these touching points. So podcast to me gives that ability to educate for those that are maybe really interested. And our audience is the everyday person, the everyday consumer, those not the industry people. Because when we talk to industry people, we have the same dialogue, but the people that we're really trying to influence may not understand what the heck when we're talking trash, They just don't get it, right? So we also understand that, translation of hey, how we are able to relay this message, right? And then the short form of getting their attention and being able to have all these touch points. That's really, really critical right now. And and having those types of intentions, I appreciate both of you bringing those points up.
Yeah, and one more point to each of their points. Time is so valuable. So if I'm on the road and I don't have time to look at the long form content, I will see the short form content and I will say, oh, wow, this is really interesting. I want to learn more about it. But honestly, I don't have time to Google all of this information. But I know if the podcast or the source is very good, if it's very well researched, if the conversation's good, I'm going to go back later and look at that long form content. And then you have me as a new listener. And that's about building, and that goes to, along with building your audience and getting them to return, is that you can have people that look at both short form and long term. It's about, it's really about valuing their time too and saying, okay, this is what a typical hauler does and what their day looks like. So I know they won't be able to look at, my 30-minute, in-depth discussion on battery fires. So I'm going to make a couple clips in and maybe they'll see it and they'll bookmark it so they can come back later and learn more about without having to take that extra time on their part to go Google it. So
100%. I think, and you can basically go in and have take your long form podcast and run it. You can run it as a backlink to your website. So the SEO component of doing the podcast is absolutely huge. So we'll go through and basically have our whole podcast put into dialogue, put it into word form, and run it on the back side of our website, just from an SEO search term. So not only are you actually getting the podcast, you're getting the long form, you're getting the short form clips, then you're also getting the SEO advantage and the search advantage against your website, which is, I tell people this all the time, like, I'm not bored. I don't need another job. I think we own 9 businesses. But at the end of the day, like, I do it because it pays. Like, I'm not here to do something that doesn't actually generate revenue. I mean, I'm not getting paid a lot of money to be here today, but I'm getting the opportunity to talk to you guys and say, hey, this is what's worked for me, and this is what you guys can do. You don't necessarily need us to do that, but if you don't know where to start, we can definitely help you. If you know where to start, then get started. But what you can do, there's just so many facets to that long form that you can then strip out and use it against short form, use it against SEO, search criteria, and it will generate you business.
And to piggyback on Brett's point, again, to translate into real terms here, how many of you have Googled something and what's one of the first things that pops up in your search results? YouTube videos, right? Every one of our podcasts that we do, even though it's audio, when you think of podcasts, we always encourage them to do a video form because we put it on YouTube, because we know in the Google algorithm, because Google owns YouTube, it favors YouTube in the search algorithm. So we're doing the backlinks for our clients, but also when podcasts are put onto YouTube, it gets favored in the algorithm. So this is also something that we do for our businesses. So the podcasts are also a business development tool.
And that podcast may not get watched for a year or two, but now that you've made it and you put it into the whatever you want to call it,
Ether,
the ether,
ethers.
it's out there, and somebody might pick that thing up 5 years from now, right? But if you had a good guest who was super knowledgeable, had some good information, something witty to say, or whatever that case may be, like, it eventually, like, it makes its way through. I mean, I see TikTok videos that come through my feed, and they're like 2 years. Like, I looked at the date, and I was like, oh, that was like 2 years ago, and I'm just getting it. You know, I mean, it finds its way through the system. It'll. If you're interested, it'll find you.
Now, before we move on, there was a lot of people here who haven't started but want to. If someone's prioritizing to start tomorrow, do you recommend short form content or trying to set up long form content? So
Whatever they can do, start somewhere, right? Like, I say, just pick up your phone, somehow get started. And the biggest thing is find a way to be consistent, whether, like what Sarah said, find someone that holds you accountable. If that's what you need, then great. Like, seek that out, but just figure out a way. On the marketing side, it really is just consistency, and then it builds on itself. It's like I heard it said before, it's the first time you work out is hard, but after a week, a month, a year, that routine becomes a little easier. And it's the same thing with content creation. The first couple times it's hard. Like, I don't really know that I like myself on video or how I talk or whatever the case may be, but you just get reps, you get reps, and all of a sudden it's not super difficult because it's built into your routine.
Yeah, well, one of the first things that, my first boss ever said to me was, as a journalist, write every day. So create a piece of content every single day, whether or not it's going to resonate with an audience, whether or not it's going to, go viral. Just do it every single day, whether it's a piece of short form or you're working on something longer that you finally got wrapped up and you can publish, because you're going to get better at it. And eventually, just as Brett said, an audience down the road could find it if it has that evergreen content and it's hitting those, those SEO points that you need to hit for other people to see it.
Yeah. 100% agree.
Cool. That's also my advice that I was given early on. Just start doing it. Just pick up your phone, do something. We're at WasteExpo this week. The expo hall is full of good stuff. Take videos, turn the camera around, take a selfie, start talking into your camera. Just do it.
And then I will say, like, we were, Jennifer and I were just at the ISRI Expo 2 weeks ago. We were just here and having a similar conversation. And that week, you saw a ton of content go across LinkedIn, which is now REMA, the Recycled Materials Association. But there was a ton of content. And is probably this last week, you see very little. Like, well, everybody's there, they're in the moment, they're like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then it's like the New Year's Day diet, right? Like 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, they're like, screw it. a cheeseburger, and they gave up. And I think that's where content creators or whatever you want to call yourself, people that are producing content on a regular basis, you'll win because you're just consistent and you just keep putting it out there and you keep getting better and you keep refining like what your audience likes, what they're interested in, what educational piece you're putting out there that seems to resonate. And then you start to find your niche and your groove.
And to that point, it's not, being consistent about when you publish is so important. If you decide to publish once a week, make sure you do it once a week, whether it's a short form piece of content or a long form, because people are going to start noticing patterns and then they're going to keep coming back knowing that they're going to get that new content that resonates with them.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. This next slide we'll try and do kind of quickly because I feel like the next slide might be a little more heavy on the questions or the answers. Platforms. We're looking at the mindset of your consumer differs between apps. You're looking for your demographics interests on different platforms. For the table, how do you find where your consumers are? What's a good place to start looking for them? Don't be shy. I know you guys like to talk.
So when you're taking a look at who your target audience is, you definitely want to have an idea of how the different platforms work. So when you think of LinkedIn, for instance, it's B2B. You can get a little bit tier 2, tier 3, like B2C-ish, but we're going to ignore that. It's B2B, right? Like you're going to other companies. That's the main bread and butter of LinkedIn. When you're trying to reach, more local customers, more peddlers, more, local community, that's when you start shifting over to say like Facebook, maybe a little bit more Instagram, where you can start targeting, more local regions from that aspect. And so that's how you want to take a look at the different platforms, how they work. TikTok can do that. If anybody has started traveling for work, I don't know if anybody's on TikTok, they know where you're at. Has anybody been on TikTok this week? Have you noticed you're starting to get Vegas videos, local Vegas videos? They know where you're at. So think about that too, as well. When you're posting videos, start tagging your business, your location when you're putting those videos up, because it will go out to your local community based on the location.
Yeah, I really have fun going live when I get places just because it's kind of fun. And having everybody go live with you, it's fun. Everybody seems to like it. And it does draw an audience. And what I found, like on my nonprofit's website, when we go live there, our members tend to know, hey, this is where they're at. It's easier to be found as well. Then you become accessible. And so then that's how business happens. It becomes organic that way. When you're building a community and you're entering into that community, it's good to let people know where you're at. And so that's kind of an opportunity for you to do that. Sometimes it could be a little nerve-wracking doing it by yourself, or you got an entourage. That's good too.
Yeah.
Excellent. And I think a lot of platforms allow you to hashtag the right way to be local if you're looking for local consumers, and those people will find your content as long as you tag it the right way. I think that's important to note. Let's move on, because I feel like there's a lot of fear in content, a lot of pain points, a lot of questions getting started, a lot of people who want to get started today. So I think we can cover that. I guess, what is some helpful information you could pass on to someone who wants to start today, other than just starting? Like, do they need the best equipment? Is someone worried on getting out there and like making sure they have the right tools? Has editing work? Is this a time commitment thing?
Go ahead, Jennifer.
So if you go back and look at every one of our first posts, if you will, all of ours were horrible. Like, just know
Trash.
none of us were good in the beginning. I mean, to Brett's working out point, like nobody can run a marathon the first day, right? I used to be good at LinkedIn in my mind, okay? Prior to me posting videos, like I used to post articles, make my comments, comment on other people's posts. And then I decided to start posting videos. And that was a rude awakening, okay? If you go back to when I started posting videos, like if you're not embarrassed with the first video that you post, I mean, congratulations, good on you. But like, you're going to be probably embarrassed with the first video, and you should be, because like, you just have to step out and do it. You're not going to like the way your voice sounds. You're not going to like the way like you probably look in the video. Like, it's just an uncomfortable process. Nobody likes it. And you just have to get over it. You just have to start being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And everybody goes through it, and you're going to get better. You just have to know that it will get easier and it will become easier.
And figure out which way you enjoy doing it. If you're a video person and you make good videos, make videos. If you're a good writer and you like to write long form content, write long form content. You got to pick the thing that works for you, for your business, for maybe what you're not allowed to do within your corporate structure, within your business. But you have to find your niche that you feel the most comfortable, and then that's when you'll produce the best results. Like, I'm not built to run a marathon. I could go lift some weights and I'd be pretty decent at it, but I know that. Like, so I don't try and run marathons, right? I just find what works for me, what I think I could be good at, and then I just stick to that niche, and I just try and get really good at those couple of things. And I think that's the same thing with content. You don't have to be the best writer, the best video, the best podcaster, the best this. Just figure out kind of what you enjoy, what you think you can provide the most information, and go hard at that at the beginning, and then see if those other things you can start bolting everything else on to that.
How many business owners in the room? Okay. And then, and from a business owner's perspective, I really like the ability to have the ability to switch off from that mind. Okay. Because it allows me to have a sense of freedom to communicate a message, to communicate, and also bring in other voices, to have a dialogue. So I think about what our intention is. That will, I believe, organically bleed money into your business, right? And as we all said, we're up here to also increase revenue within our business. It will happen, but you have to be really clear about what your intention is, right? I really appreciate the fact when I'm on the creative side that it's fun. And I don't think we got to mention that it is really fun. So all the fear shit, like, it's also kind of fun, like, and it's liberating in that regard. So, don't be afraid, just have some fun. And if you're ready to have some fun, I think we can start getting some more communications out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that everyone here is very passionate about the industry, and just that fact right there should not let you be, step back or be fearful about wanting to give the right information, because that is so important now with all of the misinformation and everything that is out here about recycling. I mean, how many times, raise your hand if you go and you talk to a random stranger and you tell them what you do, they say talk about recycling, they're like, oh, recycling doesn't work. How many times have you heard that? I mean, really, like, it's just like absolutely incredible that, people still think that, and we're already working so hard to get the right information out there. So I think, just having that portraying your passion through your content, I think people will recognize that, and people will see that because you're passionate about it and because you're knowledgeable about it, they're going to want to come back and say, hey, I like this person. They like what they're doing. They have the right information. They're putting it out, at a certain time. And maybe, like you guys said, it's not the best quality at first, but it's getting what I need. And I think that's really important.
And you don't have to spend a ton of money. I think that's the other thing. People kind of like, well, if I'm going to go down this marketing journey, it's going to cost me, $1 zillion. And that's another thing that's incorrect. I think that is attributes to the fear factor. Is like, well, what am I committing to financially to get this done? As much or as little as you want. Like, that's really is the answer. Like, how hard do you want to go? How much do you want to push the envelope? How much content do you want to create? How much help on the back end editing do you need? I mean, it really is like, it's kind of up to you. I mean,
you create your budget with your team.
As little as or as much as you want. Do you want to promote your ads? Do you not? Do you just want to create organic content, which doesn't cost you a dime? I mean, my wife, who's in the audience, we went to a show last night. I paid through my PayPal account money that TikTok sent me to, and all I'm doing is creating videos about our recycling facility, right? But they're spending me money to keep making videos about scrap metal and trucking. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, so it's not costing me a ton of money to make TikToks, but it just takes time, and I think that's where that time and that what do you attribute your time to? If I wasn't generating revenue, I probably wouldn't be doing it. If I didn't feel like it was good for my business and good for the brand and good for awareness, I wouldn't be wasting my time. But there is value there. You just got to find it and figure out what your cadence is within it.
Excellent. Let's see. Fear of what to talk about. It's something that maybe everyone will deal with. Like, what do I do? What do I take a video of? I know I want to start a video, but like everyone else is doing that already. Why should I also start a video? What? I'm afraid to get into that space. How do we navigate that?
I can tell you on TikTok, not everyone is doing it. For sure. If you go to the search bar on TikTok, for instance, and you put in waste, if you put in recycling, and the top creators that show up, they are not from our industry. Okay. The experts are they're not us. Okay. Or at least they are not, the majority of them are not the experts from our industry, and they should be from our industry. Right. So that means that there is a huge opportunity from an educational standpoint to be there. If you switch over to LinkedIn, there absolutely is a huge opportunity for each individual business to be on LinkedIn, to be posting on LinkedIn, because again, it's an algorithm. You're trying to find your next business opportunity on LinkedIn. It's not going out to every single person that's on LinkedIn. It's only going to be shown to who's within your network and who's within, the ripple effect. So, oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. So what normal person is typing in waste into TikTok's search engine? And it, like, the content that is out there, if it's not from us as industry professionals, and we're finding that kind of thing, and we can potentially correct that. Like, I push back on the, like, who's typing in like waste or recycling into the search bar, and how are we going to generate eyeballs without, yes, we have to tag waste and recycling, but like, what else should we be talking about to try and like get them to see our content?
I love that question because you know who's typing it in? Businesses that are generating waste and trash, right? Executives, people that have been tasked with trying to figure out the answer for something their facility's generating or that their company's generating. I mean, the reality of it is we'd like to every one of our videos to get 1 million views and have it go viral. But if your video only gets 10 views, but it's 5 views from the right 5 people that can actually help solve a problem within their business, then that's a potential business connection for you, right? And so I think to your point, a lot of people really feel that, and they're like, well, who's out there typing waste into TikTok? Like, not that many people, let's be honest, right? But it only takes a couple, and it really can change the trajectory of your business.
And as far as like TikTok knowing, like TikTok knew that I was going to Las Vegas because my husband started sending me TikTok videos. And like, my husband's not here with me. Like, so like it must have known from our text messages or whatever it is that like I was going to Las Vegas, and it started showing him TikTok videos of like food that I should eat. And then he's sending it to me. So like, you don't think that they know, they really do.
They do know. Yeah.
I want to say something, okay, too, for everyone in the room. It is okay for you to pick one channel, not all channels. It is okay for you don't have to do all things. The idea about, creating content in podcasts, when we started on Spotify. Then from there, we went to Apple. But we started on a a podcast platform that recorded us and uploaded us. And it was really bootstrap. Okay. When you think about that, but we picked one channel and we said, we just want to do good on Spotify. And we worked our way up there. So just pace yourself with all the pressures that are out there when you're starting, please, because we're getting that. We got way far.
We still make videos that get 10 views.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
To this day, I mean, I get
Like-
10 views, which is fine because I'm enjoying the content. I know that if one of those 10 views is to somebody that that translates into business, I'm okay with that. You know,
I'll say one thing before we move on to Q&A, which we're about to jump into. It's okay to game TikTok a little bit. Be cheeky about it. If there's a trending sound that's working, you can just lower the volume, put it on your TikTok, and that'll end up in people's feeds. You know, just be coy about it. It's okay. It's fine.
Yeah, just figure out, what is popular and kind of
Follow that trend.
figure out which ones will work with the audience and will resonate more with the audience, and then kind of work those little things in there.
So yeah, we'll jump into Q&A. If you have a question, feel free to line up at the microphone, or if you see it open, jump in. Be sure to speak into the microphone. This is being recorded and we want that audio. So go ahead.
Hi, good morning. So I'm in the public sector, not the business side of things. And so I'm very curious as to how you all think that social media can help to focus on the municipal side of waste that's generated and not to, how do we dispel all the myths associated with it in the concentrated areas where the variability of the recycled materials can be collected and processed? And also, longtime listener of Trash Magic. Awesome.
Thank you. I think from the public sector, I think it's really important because there's a sense of insight that's you're responsible. You're responsible from a public sector to be transparent. And I think sharing it brings more trust. That's my answer. So how you start is by involving your local schools, your local communities, because these kids want to be hip and cool. And nothing's more exciting to grassroots efforts, getting involvement from our local youth. And so I think allowing that kind of, connection will be an amazing awareness. As we talked about education, getting that kind of support. With that, that's a really good connection. And how many more people are going to want to see that happen? So thank you.
And to piggyback on that, so Deloitte did a study that on Gen Z in the workplace, and it said essentially that Gen Z is all about sustainability, about circular economies, and they want to find workplaces that align with their personal beliefs to the point that they would take a lower paying job
Yep.
if that workplace would align with their personal beliefs. Imagine from a recruitment standpoint, if you could put out from a transparency standpoint what you're doing and what you're helping with for that next generation.
You're breeding loyalty is what you're doing. You're breeding loyalty at the base, at your direct community, which is the best, in my opinion, because it breeds good economics.
Go ahead.
Good morning, guys. Thank you for this content. It's been very insightful. I'm Jay with Lumen Brighter Learning. We specialize in short form training to increase engagement and behavior change. I wanted to know are any of you guys using your content internally for training? And if you are, how's that working for you?
Yes. Oakley and I have done a training with Green Labs. Smart Waste works with companies to help them get ISO 14001 certified. We ourselves are R2V3 certified and ISO 9001 certified. So we really love these types of content trainings. This goes back to education and having an impact. We really wanted to see these laboratories not have this type of chemical waste in the municipal solid waste or in the compost or in the recycling, which is a whole nother type of conversation. But yes, and I think it's fun and it's great. And it comes with a lot of research and study and research. So yeah, I will say.
ours is strictly for marketing, for branding purposes. So no, we have not, but I like the concept. I like the idea.
Hi, this has been great. Every minute of it's been wonderful, and thank you so much. My question is specifically about TikTok and the future of TikTok. What are your guys' thoughts on how it might? Well, I mean, it's a toggle switch. It's either going to be a yes or a no. So I'm really curious if it's a no. What's your pivot?
I think, I mean, whether TikTok exists a year from now or 6 months from now or not, it's still getting you ready for the next thing. Social media isn't going away. So just your ability to learn how to operate on that platform and use that platform to drive, business opportunity. It's getting you ready for whatever the next app, social media tool that's coming along. I mean, I really spend most of my time on LinkedIn because I'm looking for those business to business opportunities and connections. TikTok is something that if it's still there and I can still access it and still use it to maybe help me create a couple of videos I can use on other platforms, great. But I'm not super hung up on it. It's just, I mean, Facebook Reels will be there.
Yeah.
The Instagram Reels will be there. And it's really the same type of short form content that you're creating. So whether it's any of those platforms, it's still a very similar audience with those, 15 to 30-second videos.
No, that's
Yeah.
great. I live in Montana, and I think we've already banned it or some. I mean, we're pretty close if we haven't already done it. So I just wanted to know. So when I approach my board of directors and say, hey, one of the things, my takeaways from Waste Expo is TikTok that I can answer.
Yeah, I think there's some, dual opinions about it in the marketplace, right? And so it depending on the community that you have around you and their opinion, I look at it diplomatically, right? So for me, I'll say that if you keep it OG and keep it on YouTube, you're safe.
Yeah, YouTube Shorts is the greatest equivalent to it. TikTok is the largest search engine for Gen Z, so you are kind of covering your bases going between TikTok and YouTube Shorts.
But if I've got a conservative board, it might make sense just to start with YouTube because we've already put a few things up
Yeah.
on YouTube. I think theoretically we have a channel.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were going
And
to.
and to something that we haven't addressed yet that I think is useful is having some content on your website. Because look at what happened to MySpace and Vine. Vine is the shortest form of content. It was a 7-second video, and it blew up, and then all of a sudden it was gone. So I think a good backup is to have some of that some of your favorite, your most views. Host that on your website so that people know you have that information on your website because websites are so important because maybe Facebook is down one day and you had a very important announcement to make. Or, maybe like you said, maybe TikTok is banned. Then what are we going to do? What are we going to do with all this content that we create? What are we going to do with all of our viewers that were on TikTok? If we keep linking them back to your website and you have a good base on a website, I think that is, a good plan to be able to kind of round everything out with your marketing efforts.
And there's a couple apps out there like Linktree that allows you to basically link all your socials. So when you say you have a YouTube channel or whatever, whether it's your personal or your company, you can basically link all of those socials together. So if somebody saw a video they liked of yours, you could drive them to your website, you could drive them to your YouTube channel, you could drive them basically to any of those channels, and they would be able to find more information about what you're trying to educate people on.
Well said.
Brett, you were talking about how you get paid by TikTok and how that's kind of one of the motivating factors for using social media. I'm from Canada where there's not a creator fund. So what would you recommend as some ways that businesses could kind of monetize their social media in areas where the creator fund might not be available?
Yeah, I started making TikTok videos, I think like 4 or 5 years ago. And I didn't make it to make any money, right? I was just trying to find ways to promote our business and what we were doing every day. So I was probably like a little bit earlier than say if you start today. But so I didn't know like what I was really doing. I just was making videos about trucks and about scrap and about why I do this way. And like, this is how we do our marketing here. And then like the creator fund or whatever came along and they're like, yeah, if you change your account into a creator fund, then we'll pay you to make videos. And I was like, that's crazy. Like you're going to pay me to just promote my business. So I don't get rich off of TikTok videos, but I think they sent me like
couple grand, which is fine. I mean, it helped pay for our tickets to Matt Rife the other night. But it was it was just something that I just kind of came into. It wasn't an ever planned scenario, but it is out there if you're really good. And I don't think I'm really that good at it. I've just been doing it a long time. There's people out there that are a lot smarter. They're probably a lot more creative. That can really niche down and get probably amass a pretty good audience at something within the recycling sphere. And I mean, it's out there, but it's just organic content that you're just used. So you kind of get the dual, I just want to promote our business and see if I can gain, a connection or two, that there's an opportunity. That's why I was doing it. Still doing it today. Does that answer your question? Okay. Sorry.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sydney. I'm with Southwest Waste. This is actually my first Waste Expo, but I brought a little prop to make like a reel or something. So I'm not quite sure what kind of short form content, but as a first time person at Waste Expo, what would be like a prompt that if you had a little mini microphone, what would you go around and do?
So I actually did something very similar to this at ISRI/REMA. I actually brought my kids for a couple days, and I had them go around and interview people about their careers because I'm trying to get Gen Alpha aware of the careers that are in the waste and recycling industry. Maybe you pick some sort of one question that you can go around and ask people to answer, and then you can splice that together and you can create like a whole, reel of just them answering throughout the whole week that you're here. Or maybe there's like a few different questions. So then you have like 3 reels that you can do. And now you've got, multiple people. Now you've got, if you did 10 people, now, especially if you put it on LinkedIn, now you've got 10 people you can tag, 10 companies you can tag, and it starts going out to all of those different companies in their networks.
And it's okay to be a little silly sometimes too. You can go up and interview a few people like, hey, what are the best shoes to wear at a trade show?
Yeah, and if there's like something that's kind of controversial within your industry, I don't know the waste industry as well as I know the scrap metal recycling industry, but I know there's like a few hot button topics that within that industry that I could ask somebody and they'd give you their opinion. So if there's something that's kind of going on within your industry right now, or even within your, say, area, that you could ask that question and really get them to give an honest opinion, like what's or something as basic as what's the coolest piece of equipment you've seen at the show, or what do you think is the best class format you've seen at the show, or something along those lines. Just pick something off. But if I would try and find something that people were going to give you an opinion on, maybe not the election, but because people are going to give you their opinion on that.
I don't know about you, but I think prompts are fun. I think props are fun. So the waste industry has a lot of props and has a lot of puns. And so I think I go back to the creative mind of having fun. And so I would just think about that. You're going to see a lot of miniature trash cans. You got a little miniature microphone, maybe find a little miniature monos running around and have a whole nother conversation. I mean, it's really about that, right? When you're having creative conversations in a place like this, let's bring the fun out of everybody in the room as well, and the explosiveness, because when you're creating content, who doesn't want to be seen? Anybody want to be seen? Because I know I want to be seen, right? Yeah. So also indulge the time. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, actually, what would be a really fun prompt? Get a piece of plastic or like some random type of packaging and go ask everybody on the show floor, is this recyclable or not? And actually get answers about whether people know from the industry. Most people will probably know, I assume, but you never know. So I think something like that, like saying, hey, look, people in the industry know how, or maybe people in the industry don't know all the answers yet.
Maybe we'll start with a piece of organic material like banana.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's what I'm saying. Like, pick stuff that's easy and pick stuff that's hard and see what, Let the public know that it's okay if they don't know how to recycle something and to not get frustrated with it, but to go find the answers. And maybe you're the person that has those answers.
Or is it recyclable in your municipality?
Yeah.
Because of the, infrastructure that is or is not available within that area. Just to showcase the differences, because that's, I think, the biggest issue of why recycling is a scam
Exactly.
comes across in this nation is a lot of that in the background.
That could be your question: is recycling a scam?
That
Oh, we've had a conversation about that on Trash Magic. So make sure you check it out.
I know we might be running out of time real quick, but I do have to point out something. And I apologize if this is, but how much did that piece of accessory cost?
under
Okay.
$5.
Exactly. So I just want to point out it's really inexpensive to start off with these types of accessories. I have maybe $50 worth of accessories, I'm air quoting if you're listening to this in the future, in my purse of a selfie light that attaches to my phone, as well as 2 portable microphones that were like maybe $20 or $25 off of Amazon. And they work fine. Are they the best quality? No. But again, they are portable, they're small, and to your point, they're going to be fine.
And there's also like a Target right down the street here on the strip. So if you want to go start today, you can.
They got it. Right before we wrap up, I will say one more thing to that point. Gaming the algorithm, gaming the trendingness on TikTok and Reels. Have you ever seen those salary transparency videos? If you set your video up just like that, start it just like that, and kind of follow what they're doing, that will end up in those the people's interest if they're watching salary transparency. You can do waste transparency, recycling transparency. That will go. We're all content brains, so we're all thinking about that kind of stuff. So maybe that's why it's a better long-winded question. One last thing, Brett.
And once you like try a bunch of different things, and once you feel like you found something that's like you're getting good traction on, then go hard at that.
Yeah.
But you got to try a bunch of different things, and then once you find that, just attack it.
All right, everyone. That brings us to our end of our session. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to my panel again. I'm sure you will see all of us walking around WasteExpo. Feel free to say hi. We're all content people. We want to be in the same content space. If you have questions for them, feel free to ask as you see them. We all like to share our ideas. We're all trying to get better at content. But again, enjoy WasteExpo. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you.